Well, thank you everyone for coming. I'm sure Maggie is very happy to see many familiar and unfamiliar faces. I'm Martin, as Megan introduced me. It is my pleasure, obviously, to be interviewing. I could definitely speak up. To be interviewing, a wonderful person like Maggie. I was thinking, and when Maggie asked me to interview her, I was thinking of when actually it was when Maggie and I first met. And I can't actually honestly remember when it was when we met, but I do remember actually, I do remember chatting with her actually before we actually even arrived. I don't know if you remember, but we chatted before we actually even arrived at Middlebury. I looked at her blog, and she wrote so eloquently and so passionately about so many things, starting from issues that she holds dear to her heart, and a lot of other personal things that about vulnerability and love and engaging with people, and many of those which I believe she will be speaking about today. To me, I think Maggie really embodies what this center stands for, which is kind of this an active agent of social change, and she really exemplifies someone who is truly following what their passions are. So without further ado, Maggie, what matters to you and why?
Thank you everyone for being here with me and sharing this moment. What matters to me and why? I spent the past couple of weeks reflecting on this question in preparation for this talk, and it hasn't become any easier to narrow it down to just one thing or two. But I guess I want to start this conversation by telling you a little bit about myself and my story. And I think what I've realized through, especially the last 2 years, reflecting back on previous experiences and my life so far, is that perhaps the two main threads running throughout my life are that of privilege and poverty. And so I was born and raised in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. My father was a Palestinian immigrant. I was raised by my mom, who took care by herself of my brother and I. And throughout my childhood, we always had to deal with a lot of financial insecurity. Throughout my childhood, we always had to think about, how are we going to pay the bills next month, and how are we going to put food on the table. And for me, even when as an adolescent, that became I guess as a child, I was affected by that, but I wasn't able to be responsible and to do anything much about that other than just helping my mom. And then as an adolescent, this became more and more something that I felt I was responsible to contribute to. And so I started working at 15 and tried to help relieve that difficulty for my family. And throughout my childhood, we didn't have hot water, or we only got our first washing machine 3 years ago when I managed to save money and buy one. And in a way, for me, coming to Middlebury was really a huge step in so many ways and a great privilege. And it certainly also, changed my financial situation, where for the first time in my life, I didn't have to worry about, what I'm gonna eat today, or how are we gonna pay the bills. And together with that, even here, my experience has also been shaped by this financial insecurity and by sort of not having a safety net to fall on sometimes. And for example, when I was in Jordan last year, I had this episode when for a week I was I was in a really bad place because I realized that I only had $100 left, and it was only the beginning of the semester, and I had expected that financial aid would send me some money for transportation costs. A month is extremely expensive to live in, and that wasn't happening because this money had gone towards my taxes. And so all of a sudden I faced this really difficult situation to handle, because I was in Amman And I didn't even have like money to go back home. So because at this point I was thinking, like there's no way for me like to survive in a month. Like I've done a lot of things. I've hitchhiked. I've lived on like $2 a day during my gap year in like Western Europe. But still, like there was no way that I could, like remain in the program. And so then I guess all of these experiences dealing with this difficulty have also like made me really creative and really helped me become very resourceful about ways to go about situations. So what happened then was like for a week I, apart from like crying to my mom on Skype, I was like looking for internships because I also had this privilege of being a fellow at the Center for Social Entrepreneurship. And so I had this grant of money that like I could use for towards internships and other opportunities like that. So for a week, I emailed every organization in Amman doing like anything that I am interested in and offered to be an intern. And eventually, as it often happens with me, like things just kind of like resolve themselves, although it takes like kind of a while for that to happen. And so I had applied for a position as an intern at UNDP in Jordan, and 3 weeks later, after my interview, they finally responded to me and told me that they wanted to have me. So then I was able to actually like use some of my fellowship money to towards like transportation and be able to really like stay and be part of the program. And the reason why I'm kind of like starting off of that is because wow, I've had like all of these and many more like difficult experiences that I've had to deal with. I've also been insanely privileged in so many ways. Starting off with just I was having a hard time falling asleep last night, and I was thinking, there's really like never been a person in my life who has questioned or doubted me in a way. People have often asked me, like, why is it that you want to do that? Why is it that you want to, like, go to Thailand on a meditation retreat or hitchhike alone, like, throughout Europe or be polyamorous, people have wondered, like, why, but, like, nobody has ever, like, questioned whether I can do and will do the things that I'm saying I will do. And I think that of itself is a huge privilege. And I've also had the privilege of just throughout my life being so loved and supported and encouraged. And for that, I think the reason why I've learned to view it as a privilege is just because I think that every one of us has so much to contribute and like give to others, and so much that is special and unique. And I've been really privileged that people have seen that in me and have supported that along the way. And so I'm sort of writing a book now, reflecting on some experiences. And, I was writing about being a student in primary school, and so back then I started organizing my first charity actions. There was a boy from my neighborhood who was really sick, and I was trying to help with by selling, like handmade cards and all sorts of other things. And like just thinking about that, I was so struck. Like how is this like 9-year-old girl, and like people gave me money, like towards this cause, and people believed in me and like trusted me, and I have like done tons of different things, many of which have failed and not really like achieved like the big goals that I had set up for them, and nevertheless people like have always like supported me and trusted me, and I think that's an enormous privilege. So just so that I give back the word to Martin, and to also like answer I guess the question what matters to me and why, like these experiences that I briefly outlined to you just now have shaped me into being who I am and have shaped what I care about and what matters to me. And there are tons of things that matters to me, but if I have to just pick a couple, I guess sharing really matters to me. Sharing with others and collaborative learning and growth really matters to me. love really matters to me. Vulnerability really matters to me. And keep it at that.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. That's honestly such a powerful story, and thank you for your courage to share it with me and with the others. I think it takes some courage. And we're not actually going much further, further from that story. I just wanted to ask you because, you started talking about actually a 9-year-old Maggie doing this, fundraising and everything. But I think that, that we can definitely see that throughout your life. You're doing just so much, starting, from freelancing and like writing for, different magazines to currently organizing a camp, and a school actually. Camp will be an understatement. In Bulgaria, and working just day in and day out on that, and so many conferences and et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to ask you, what gets you excited to achieve, and what what keeps you going?
For this question, I guess right off my mind, there are at least like 2 things that I can point at, and one is certainly the desire for knowledge, the desire for knowledge and for developing, and that always for me has been not just knowledge for myself or self-development. To me, that's always I've always seen that in the context of learning with others and growing with others, and even now. I'm this kind of a person who, as I already said, can't sleep at night because I get so passionate and so excited and just, can't go on in my mind. And, but, I guess what really, really excites me is precisely that, the opportunity to create things with others, the opportunity to extend the opportunities that I've been given to others and to share in a way that privilege or to pay forward. And to me, I guess, I've always thought that the pie, so to say, is not something that is limited, that, I need to have all to myself. To me, the pie is something that, we can share with others, and the more we share, the more there is. And I guess, I had this friend, and that was a couple of years ago, during my gap year, and I was telling him about all my different experiences and about sharing with others through conversation, through various means. And he was telling me, why is it that you want to share these things? Don't you want to keep them for yourself? You've arrived at some certain understandings, or you've managed through your experiences to get a glimpse of different things. So and this is what makes you unique. Why are you sharing this so freely with others? And in a way, letting go of that, I guess. And to me, that was a very surprising question because it wasn't how I had thought about the matter at all. And to me, I received enormous pleasure and joy from being able to, for one, develop my ideas through conversation and through bringing up things with people, but also, I guess the other part to it is just, that no matter who the person who is in front of you is, there's something interesting about them and something that you can connect to, and that, through conversation and through being genuine and authentic and vulnerable, you can really maybe inspire them, or be part of this process of insight making. And I really had so many I have so many stories now with friends where I've started, our friendship has started by me meeting them through various contexts, and passionately sharing with them, my experiences or information about opportunities and so on. And since, they've they've been equally like a source of inspiration for me. And we've just, like to me, I guess what really excites and inspires me is precisely that, the opportunity, like to kind of, I don't want to use that business language, but like invest in your environment, in your community, and like how that really contributes to everyone's well-being and growth.
That's very inspiring, and actually this reminds me because I feel like the concept of sharing is so kind of prevalent because it's exactly what you're trying to do, it seems, right now after Middlebury, going back home, going back to Bulgaria, and using the education that you've gotten at Middlebury to really kind of like make sure that other people who are not necessarily privileged, to put it that way, to come to Middlebury or here, to like learn English in the best way possible, or learn language in the best way possible. And I think it actually kind of ties with also the very first question I asked you about upbringing, your upbringing back in Bulgaria. So I wanted to ask you about, when you think of home, like what's the very first thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is how vulnerability is normal, and vulnerability is beautiful, and it's just like kind of how things are. Authenticity comes to mind, and I'm gonna like go into, I guess, I'm gonna say a little bit more.
Yeah, please talk about it. I think the concept, throughout conversations that I've had personally with you, I think that the concept of vulnerability keeps coming up. So I definitely want to hear more about that, and I think that the audience would also appreciate it, to hear more about like what you think about vulnerability and vulnerability's power are beautiful.
Yeah. So I think one of the hardest things, like that, one of the most difficult things I had to kind of face and continuously, like be challenged by here at Middlebury was the fact that like vulnerability in many ways, and I don't want to say that like Middlebury is the only place where this is the case, but I think that in many places vulnerability is seen as a weakness and not as a strength and as a power. And to me, being the way I am, and coming from the community I came from, that was something really difficult to deal with and to learn to navigate. And I don't even know if I fully managed to. But I guess just this past summer, I came back home after a really difficult summer where I broke up with the person who was essentially like the love of my life so far. And I was at a place where I had like really exhausted myself both physically and emotionally. I had like lost 80 kilos over the summer, just kind of suffering through this insane love. I'm really sorry. But yeah, and so I think that the reason why, say, last semester was so difficult for me was because I had somehow internalized a little bit this idea that vulnerability is a weakness, and that we can talk about, like what makes us vulnerable and what makes us, like sad or cry. Or anything like that. And so for a while I was really like trying, to struggle through the things I was struggling with by myself. And I don't want to say that there were people around me who supported and loved me. But it was only when I went home that I realized that that this shouldn't be this is not how things should be. And I had so many conversations with friends, with my mom, where we would sit together and, like there would be some crying and there would be some laughter, and all of that happened and was experienced as completely normal, as completely just, like a part of the conversation, like nothing to really like comment on or feel ashamed about. And I specifically remember I had this, I spent a day with like one of my friends from childhood, and that was a very powerful experience because really like what made me, like people like that and friendships and relationships like that, and which made it so hard for me, like to adapt to Middlebury in many ways. So like in the span of a couple of hours, we just like shared everything, like every like little and like big, like bad and good thing that has happened. And like the bad things, again, like weren't seen, like no one was made to feel weak for like opening up or sharing like throughout those conversations. It was also kind of like opening up or like being vulnerable, like didn't exist as like, like things to be acknowledged in a way, because this is just how we are. This is just how we talk with each other, like when we're close. And I kind of forgot what you asked me. That's just awesome question, Martin.
It does. I wanna, another thing that I wanted to actually talk about, because you've done just so much. So I wanted to know, like, what's the thing that you're, most proud of, the achievement or something that you're most proud of?
I'm sorry, I actually want to say a little bit
Sure.
more to this question. Because I reminded myself where I was going with this. But I guess, like, so again, this summer I had to do like a ton of reflection about where I wanted to go and what I wanted my next step to be, especially given that like now I'm a senior and the end is close. And
sorry.
And like, I guess there was this kind of like a big realization, which again ties back, like to privilege, that, like I could foresee myself, like doing different things in different parts of the world. And a lot of these really excite me, and traveling has always excited me, and I've done a lot of it. But I guess what I ended up, like realizing for myself was that as much as I love traveling and visiting new places and exploring new cultures and all of that, what I really like need at this point of my life is to again be part of a community in a more grounded way, in a more stable way for a longer time. And so this has really been the reason why I decided, and it was facilitated by the fact that I had this idea since sophomore year to found an alternative language and leadership school, which is now happening, for which I'm really happy. So yeah. Yeah, and so now you're asking me what I'm most proud of.
Yes, that's correct. I'm sure there are many things, but like one.
Yeah. I guess one of the things that I'm most proud of, and like that I'm most happy when I think of, is my experience of founding a youth-led nonprofit back in high school when I was 15 in Bulgaria. So this was one of like the first youth-led organizations in Bulgaria, and we started with just doing community service, and then as I was kind of getting access to different opportunities, like these kind of like like became part of like the activities that we were offering. So I guess one thing that I've realized about myself is that what really makes me happy and gives me a lot of joy is whenever I get access to something through privilege. And say like back in high school, like I got the opportunity to go to a youth exchange in Slovenia, which was funded by the European Union. So I was part of a group of Bulgarian youth who went to Slovenia and was part of this, like multilateral like exchange for 10 days. We did a lot of that. That's how I got introduced to the concept of informal education. And this was also like the first opportunity for me to speak English. And I was so excited and so amazed by this experience. I loved every like minute of it. I was like one of like the most like active participants. They just couldn't make me stop talking, as you can probably imagine. And like immediately when I I went home, I was like, wow, like I had this amazing experience. So how can I, like bring that back, and how can I, like make sure that like my friends from school, like the volunteers in our organization, my brother and my cousin, like can get part of something like this and, like benefit from it. So, like having started with community service, like after I went to this youth exchange, our organization began organizing youth exchanges too. So at 16, I wrote like my first project proposal for like a project that cost like 14,000 euros, and like had participants from both Bulgaria and the UK like come to Bulgaria and partake in different volunteering and community service and other kinds of activities. And so that was like my first like really like big project, and tons of learning happened there that I'm sure I'll get to talk more about. But really, like it is that organization, and in a way, like the memory for like these experiences of everyday learning and challenge and growth is what reminded me this summer, like that social entrepreneurship is what I want to do with myself for the years to come, maybe. And yeah, so I think that this is what I'm most proud of. And I guess, although, like we could argue how successful that organization was, like in the long term. Like it didn't last after, like I came to Middlebury. Like it lasted for a while after I was gone. But then it wasn't that sustainable, perhaps. And yet, like all of like my friends and like the people who took part in the programs that like we managed to run for a couple of years have now like gone to do tons of amazing things in Bulgaria and are like active leaders in many organizations. And I'm not like I don't want to claim that like this is because they participated in like the organization I started. But like the fact that it was a completely youth-led organization, like it was essentially like me and like a couple of other like 9th graders that started it and that ran it for like several years, and that was like a tremendous opportunity for empowerment and for learning for like all of us.
Well, I have had the pleasure to ask you several questions, but probably a lot of these people here would also want to ask questions. So I'll just finish with one question, and then we will open it to the audience. Is that a good plan? Okay. And this is a short question. I was just wondering, because you've talked a lot, about connections with people, about sharing with people, and about vulnerability. So I was wondering that if you could send a message to the whole world, like what would you say in 30 seconds?
I would say, I don't know if that would make sense in the context of what we've talked about or not, but I would say let yourself get broken. Should I expand? Like,
well, 30 seconds. You have 25 more.
I guess speaking of vulnerability, I think that if we don't allow ourselves, like to love fully and to be present and to give our all, sometimes, like we can grow and connect and experience life, like to the fullest.
Okay, thank you.
Oh my god, I was scared to go ahead. Always ask the hardest questions.
This one will be really easy, I promise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, go for it.
So we've spoken quite a bit about vulnerability.
I can't hear you very well.
Very much. We've spoken quite a bit about vulnerability. And I'm curious to know in your experience, how do you always balance being vulnerable with avoiding other people taking advantage of it? Because we don't live in a world where everyone is nice and they are willing to engage with the vulnerability and honor that vulnerability in a meaningful way. way. So how do you balance these two things?
That's an amazing question, and certainly something that I would think about, so thank you. Yeah, that's such a big and such a difficult question, and one that I just like find myself constantly having to deal with in a way, in one form or another. I guess what I've just recently realized is that I need to have boundaries after all, and I need to communicate these boundaries, and obviously, I mean, first I need to know what these boundaries are, and I need to be able to communicate them. So communication has always been extremely important to me, like, and something that, you know, like I've valued so much. But just like in the past like couple of months, I've really like pushed myself to make like direct and honest communication habitual. And some of you are probably sick of me talking about that because I've like repeated it on and on and on. But yeah, no, I think this is particularly why, you know, like my freshman year was so difficult and so painful for me, because I was in a way, you know, like I was this crazy person, you know, coming to Middlebury after like my gap year and after, you know, like hitchhiking and like, you know, living and like couch surfing and like living around like Western Europe like by myself and just like loving fully and also like being really like 100%, I mean maybe not 100%, but like being vulnerable like most of the day every day. Like, and really, you know, like, I think what I learned through hitchhiking and, like, again, like, making myself that vulnerable and, like, having to count on people I've never met and so on, you know, like, has taught me how amazing people are and, you know, like, how, you know, like, people take care of each other and care about each other even when they don't know each other. And I really, like, had, like, almost, like, no, like, bad experiences, you know, like, traveling and hitchhiking. And so I was coming, you know, like with all of this, and after my experience, you know, like spending some time, you know, like at a meditation retreat in Thailand and becoming polyamorous and so on. And so I was like, I came in Middlebury and I was like, okay, like now like I just like want to meet all these people, like have like deep connections with them, and talk and all of that. And I was just like kind of like one time after another, you know, like kind of being rejected or being, you know, like disposed of and so on and so on. And then because I also had this really like other big thing going on where like I was like, I'm not giving up, no. Like I'm gonna like push and I'm gonna try and like, you know, if something doesn't work, I'm gonna like try harder and so on and so on. So I have like many like times in my life when I've really like exhausted myself because of this. So I guess just reflecting on all of that, like recently after, as I told you, like the summer was again like one of these like really major difficult periods of my life. I've realized, you know, like several important things, and one is, as I already said, like the importance of like direct and honest communication, having boundaries and communicating them to people. But also, you know, like I guess I've also realized that I don't have to give my all every minute of every day, which was really, it was really like big for me to learn. And I think a lot of my experiences, you know, like during my gap year and my time here were about like how much can I take. And I think I just like wanted to like push myself like outside of my limits, outside of my comfort zone at every like possible opportunity. And I didn't know it, and what that led was, you know, like amazing growth and amazing experiences and living life, you know, like to the fullest. But also, you know, like experiences where like you exhaust yourself to a point where, you know, like sometimes it's really hard to bounce from.
So about vulnerability and stuff before, and also talking about professional life. And I'm wondering what you think about bringing vulnerability to professional relationships and what that can look like. Because I think, well, especially in the United States, people perceive vulnerability as something that's like even inappropriate for a professional space. So, but I also like deeply feel a desire for authentic and vulnerable connection with everybody, including those that I'm in professional relationships with. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's something that I've actually like spent some, I've definitely reflected on, and I'm still reflecting on, given that, you know, like I'm starting this organization, and now, you know, like we just like hired 5 people to join us for our pilot program next summer in Bulgaria, and, you know, like we are actively like working on team building, and I'm just, you know, like I have already, you know, like to think so much about, you know, like kind of like management and you know, like how to work with that team, and how, you know, like to refine my leadership style and skills. I also had precisely that conversation with my boss this summer at the consulting firm that I was working for. And I was really concerned about that because, you know, I found myself, it was really difficult for me sometimes, you know, like to work and, you know, like be productive and effective in my work, given that I was dealing with so much right then. And there were also like a ton of like kind of like work-related, you know, difficulties and, you know, like mismatches and so on. And I guess what she told me was, and again, I think it depends. I think what came out of this conversation was that it's really like a matter of individuality and who you are as a leader, and, you know, like what your values are. So, for example, she was telling me that like she is not that emotional person, and that to her, like she's able, you know, like to be professional, and that it doesn't require that much shifting or reflection, I guess. But and I guess the other thing that like she told me was that, you know, like you as a leader, you need to sometimes be able to hide some of that emotion and vulnerability, so that, you know, like other people can, you know, like see you as someone that, you know, like will be able to lead them, and, you know, like someone who is not going to kind of sink before the ship has sunk. That metaphor works, but and speaking of my leadership and, you know, like how I want to see myself professionally, to me, it's impossible, you know, like to have, you know, like your personal self and like your professional self as two like distinct, you know, like things that, you know, like, oh, you know, like at 9 a.m. like I put on like my professional Maggie costume, right? I can't imagine that happening, and maybe that makes me a bad worker. But I guess, you know, like what I've really like tried so far, you know, like with the people who are now like part of, you know, like the team for our language and leadership school, you know, like what I've tried to emphasize with them is that, you know, like people matter most, and that, you know, like, yes, we want to achieve things and we have goals that like we're setting, and especially like in our case, you know, like these goals and all of that are also like related to, you know, like making impact for people, but, you know, like, yeah, not at any cost. Yes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Do you have time for one more question? Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
It's not really a question, but I just met Maggie this year through my daughter Katie. Katie works at the college for many years in the main cafeteria, and became a friendship with Maggie, and she's really been very caring and kind to my daughter, and trying to do everything and anything she can to help her, giving her ideas in her head, and like using the computer and things. It's just, and then I've gotten to know her and finding about her mission in life to have the school for language in her own country, which I was sort of surprised, like, you really want to go back home? In fact, we graduate from Middlebury College in your country's core and stuff like that, and it was surprising that she didn't want to find something in the United States and then like move her family over, because lots of people do that because of all the opportunities in America. But just really inspired, and was very impressed how mature and open-minded and big-minded she was to have such a huge goal to start this school, and just the caring and the love. It's like, is this real? Americans are pretty selfish people. I think for the most part, there are a lot of caring people, but Americans are known to be out for number one in themselves, right? And I think that makes her really special. And I think she's going to do that.
Question? Thank you.
Thank you.